I'm your Chair Talk host Neman, and this is retrospective from the last week episode with Miloš Zikic from Spice Factory.
Team is very important, and I think it's like a lot of the times it's kind of neglected. Like you have to work with the team, you have to educate, and this is like we spend a lot of time internally in the company. To really create an innovation, you have to understand what are you solving, who will be using it. So like significant time really is like spent with the users, mapping out their journeys, mapping out their thoughts, mapping out their daily activities. And more people needs to understand like how innovation happens. That's like the first thing starts with education. And then like the tools, like, okay, so again, falls back to this, like contextual tracking system that we will let people try to use it, and that's what we want to bring into every solution in a way, like that level of understanding.
This is Chair, place where we discuss innovations. And when we're talking about online marketplaces, usually there are Amazon, AliExpress, eBay, Walmart, and let's say in the US alone, Amazon and eBay are accounted for more than 49% of US online retail, which sounds pretty crazy when you think how many are there retailers in the US alone. But other spectrum of this story, it's about online marketplaces that are specific for some niche, that are small, and that are functional in some specific niche. And that's our subject for today. My guest here is Vukan Simic, founder and CEO of Fishing Booker. Vukan is passionate about the startups, online marketing, software development, and fishing and diving. So Vukan, welcome to Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before we take the big deep dive in the world of online marketplaces, let me ask you a question about Fishing Booker itself and how it started and became what is it today.
Yeah, so how did Fishing Booker start? It started about 8 years ago. I was just a graduate in software engineering. I got my degree, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. I was based in Belgrade. I finished university here in Belgrade, Serbia, and I had several options. I could apply for an internship, build up my career as a software engineer, or I could try to do something on my own. So obviously there was I applied for a few internships, and I wasn't really satisfied with the speed you could advance your career if you're somebody who's very ambitious. So I gave myself a window of about 6 months to try and build a business for myself. So basically I wouldn't have to search for a job. And so Fishing Booker, as an angler, I'm a passionate angler and a diver. Having a business that has to do with fishing was always something that was on my radar ever since I was a kid. So Fishing Booker was basically one of the business ideas that I gave myself the goal of testing in the hopes of turning it into a business one day. And yes, after 8 years, it turned out to be a successful initiative, and it turned out to be my career.
So we talk here about innovations. It's most of our shows are about innovations. And to be in this position as you are today after 8 years, you had to innovate, and you had to innovate big, right? You're supported of Lean Startup philosophy. You told me that in our preparation for this Chair Talks episode, and I want you to tell me from that perspective on what innovations you're proud of. And let's go with two aspects. Let's go with some that is connected with technology or platform, and other on the business side.
Yeah. So I can say that the innovation that I'm most proud of is that we managed to build a company that offers chartered fishing trips from Belgrade, which doesn't have a coastline, and that we managed to build up a team that's the leader in the market. And most of the team prior to this job prior to building Fishing Booker, had never done saltwater fishing in their life. So we managed, that's the innovation on the business side, having no specific domain knowledge and being able to acquire it over time and become the industry leader and meet all the industry experts and actually position yourself and your company as at the forefront of the sport fishing industry in this case. On the technical side, we had to make large numbers of small innovations in order to build a product that in complexity is comparable to all the online travel agencies that help you to book hotels and flights online. And we had to do it with a team of not more than 5 engineers for a couple of years. So we managed to build a full-scale travel platform, online travel platform, with just a handful of engineers, it required a lot of innovation and a lot of trade-offs that enabled us to do so without hundreds and thousands of people on staff.
Yeah, and as you're saying, you did so many innovations, and with a lean startup, lean approach, there are wins, but usually it's a try and fail situation, right? So can you share with me some innovation that, okay, failed, that you did, but they had low or no success at all?
Yeah, I have a good example. So you might be familiar with the referral program that Airbnb has, which was promoted as one of their main growth channels that allowed them to scale the company. So let's say you have your Airbnb account and you refer your friend and you get a referral bonus if they book through Airbnb. So we said, hey, let's try and see if that works with fishing. And we did a bunch of tests that initially told us this was going to be a successful program. But I would say about 10 lean experiments down the road and months of development, we managed to prove that people will only use a referral program like that, like Airbnb has in fishing, in order to get a discount by getting their friends and family to book trips. So we managed to prove that we managed to innovate ourselves out of that kind of feature. That's a great example of failing really spectacularly. We just failed to produce any kind of traction other than I don't know, a son booking for his father or a wife booking for her husband, and so on and so forth. And we just had to give up on it, which is part of the game in iterating and innovation and discovering what your product is supposed to look like in the end.
Can you share with me how you guys innovate? You told me about those innovations, but I would like to know how you approach innovations. Do you use some frameworks? What is your decision-making process during the innovation and so on?
Yeah, so we try to innovate on several tracks simultaneously. First, there's the quick, cheap experiments that you run that don't really need a lot of planning. The whole point in them is to have a platform and infrastructure and company culture to be able to iterate really, really quickly. And this is what basically A/B testing and other types of split testing encompasses. So you do a large amount of very small iterative experiments in hopes of over time building up the compounding optimizations that would allow you to grow. This is one track, and we've been doing that ever since we founded the company. And another track is strategic innovation, and that's I would say that not one is more important than the other. Both are equally important, but the strategic ones, the strategic innovations tend to produce large outsized results if you get it completely right. And for long-term strategic innovation, we will typically use a few frameworks for planning and for product work. For planning we use, and goal setting we use OKRs. And for planning product work and product development, we took a lot of the principles that the company Basecamp, previously 37 Signals, around shaping up products and 6-week development cycles have used in order to, one, eliminate waste, two, cut off projects that are proving to be much more difficult to build than originally anticipated, and three, to make sure that you only build stuff that you have shaped up and de-risked sufficiently. So that's a framework, a mix of frameworks that we use in order to innovate both iteratively and quickly, while allowing for more ambitious undertakings to take place as well. And this is mostly in the areas of product work. So developing our software platform as an online marketplace.
You mentioned OKRs, and I talked with many people here about that. How long you have that implemented, and what were the challenges implementing the OKRs?
Oh, there were so many challenges. We've been using OKRs for over 6 years now, I think, and well, the main challenges initially were just basically having a small startup and trying to set goals, which is not doable in practice. But over time, as the company grew, as we started to get signs that of metrics that you can measure and optimize on, that's when OKRs started making sense. And they started really making sense when we were able to assemble entire teams to focus on just one or two objectives and make their entire focus on one or two objectives. That's when they started really making sense. So a mistake people make, and we made for sure, is we tried to implement a large number of objectives to focus on and flesh them out into several key results, while in reality we were just dealing with a 10-person, 15-person company. So we had more objectives than we had people. And that's not something you can pull off in practice. So those were the biggest challenges. As the teams, OKRs scale really, really well if you have a team that's empowered to pursue them and that can focus on purely one or two objectives and not just be watered down by your focus all over the place. So as we learned to focus and to build teams around objectives, our efforts around OKRs they started making more and more sense. And this is a journey, so there's no final destination. So we still make mistakes where we try to be more ambitious than it's possible, then we kind of just lose focus. But when we start with one or two really, really well-defined objectives, and we start with a team that's fully autonomous to pursue them and optimize their efforts around them, that's when good stuff tends to happen.
Since I know now how you innovate, can you tell me what is going to become in the future with Fishing Book Hero? What are you guys working at right now? Yeah, so we don't really have a very exciting story about innovation in the future. Our main goal is to still be in business 5 or 10 years from now, and to still be highly motivated about being the leader in booking fishing trips. So we're not looking to make billions. We're not looking to scale into 10 different product verticals. We're trying to be exceptionally good at booking fishing trips for people. That's it. And trying to stay relevant in an area that's evolving quickly. Yeah, it's usually happened with the marketplaces as yours. When company establish itself in a marketplace like this, they start to go wider and get other verticals. You are now in a fishing. It can be like logical, intuitive to go into diving and things like that. But you're not having plans like that at the moment. Yeah, so we had similar plans several times in the past, but we can still see large enough growth just from fishing that it doesn't make sense at this point to enter other verticals, because we would just lose focus. So while we can get sufficient growth just from focusing on the fishing vertical and being exceptionally good at booking fishing trips and not, let's say, diving expeditions,
we'll try to stay focused on it, because if you do one thing really well, normally that has proven, for us at least, to provide much better returns in terms of impact effort.
You mentioned it earlier as a fishing booker, what is today, and it's a world-leading website for booking fishing trips. During your almost 8 years now, right, long history, there was more than a few competitors. What happened with them?
Well, there's obviously there's companies right now that are trying to grow in the same space that we are, but I'd say the main true competitors that tried to raise funding and compete with us directly in the space, over time most of them went out of business, and I'd say the main reason for that is first of all, raising too much money in an industry that might not be able to support huge growth and huge scaling. It is a niche after all. So they had investor expectations that were pretty big, and building up a marketplace. Marketplaces tend to grow really slowly over the first 3-4 years. So it's kind of a perseverance game where you need to persevere despite slow growth, and you need to survive for long enough for the marketplace to start working. Once it starts working, it's really hard to shut it down. But the effect of slow growth is even more pronounced if you're a niche marketplace. So we had these other services that were trying to do the same thing that we are. They raised funding, they had expectations to satisfy, and they weren't able to survive for long enough with a high cost footprint to be able to stay in business, for the marketplace to monetize properly and to become sustainable. On the other hand, what we did, we didn't raise any money. We were prepared to work for free for the first couple of years, and we didn't have any investor expectations or any pressure to grow. So we just took our own pace and grew at the pace we were comfortable at. And that allowed the marketplace to exist for a long enough period of time for things to just start working. And that's when the natural network effects and competitive advantages and unfair advantages of a marketplace, of an online marketplace, start really materializing. And then it becomes really, really hard to copy. So for example, you cannot copy 300 or 500,000 reviews off a marketplace if you don't want to be sued, right? Or you can't copy the supply of a marketplace, the people selling their services. And all of these things, and your relationships with them, all of these things take time to build up. But once you do, it's very hard to undo them. And it's very hard for a new entrant to go into the space and justify the additional effort required to maintain a presence on several online marketplaces. So they have to be able to drive the consumer demand as well. And so that favorizes incumbents over time.
And you mentioned that for a couple of years you were ready to work for free. I'm sure there was challenging times. Can you give me some example of especially from the beginning?
Yeah, so being prepared to work for free. So Fishing Booker went out of business a few times, which is interesting. We're still here though. Yeah, we're still here. We're still here. We did go out of business a few times. We initially it was just a bootstrapped business, a few of us trying to build it up into something that would become sustainable. Over time, as we were hiring people, of course our fixed costs were rising, and then the natural point came where we had to make a decision whether we were going to scale more slowly or raise investment. And that was a dilemma that took a few years to resolve. And over those few years, we did not raise investment because it was not our main focus. Our main focus was on the product. And so whenever we tried to raise investment, we did a really bad job at it. And so we used to get really bad terms for investment. And
basically, you have been lucky with that.
Yeah, it was.
When you're looking from this perspective right now.
From this perspective, we were lucky because we managed to stay completely independent, and we now set our own fate, basically, depending on what the market dictates. But we are free to decide how fast and in which direction we want to develop. But yes, we did have to go through a few cycles of completely running out of money and having to work for free and losing a large chunk of our team and just doing everything that's possible to stay in business. And that happened a few times, and it made sure that only the people who really believe in the mission of the company stayed. It was not motivated by pure profit. It was not motivated by empty ambition. It was motivated by aligning with what the company stands for.
I want to now go to some personal aspects and questions. I'm passionate angler as you are. So I want to ask you, before we move to the final point of our today episode, what is the biggest fish that you caught over these years?
So that's an interesting question. I don't know the exact weight because I didn't pull the fish out of the water. I wanted to release it. It was a bull shark in northern Florida. I think it weighed around 200 kilos. I believe that was the biggest fish that I successfully caught. There was a tuna in Croatia this summer that was about 140, 150
wow.
kilos. And yeah, there were several fish upwards of the 100 kilo mark.
So we always like to finish here with the future. You told me your idea regarding future of the fishing booker itself, but let's go a bit wider. Can you share with me your opinion, your vision? What is going to be future of online marketplaces in general? What we can expect, where they are going, what will change?
Yeah, so and this is just my personal opinion, whether it's worth something or not. I've seen in the past couple of years a tremendous buildup of niche single-purpose marketplaces that allow you to get access to a particular service or type of product in a very well optimized way. So let's say you want to, I don't know, you want to get a ride here in Belgrade, you'll use a cargo. You want to get food delivery, you'll use a service like Donesi or some other ones that are available. And on the global level, you're getting marketplaces like Fishing Booker that allow you to book fishing trips. The next one that pops up might be related to, I don't know, booking boat rentals or diving, and specific activities where the marketplace is very well optimized to provide that type of service. So I see a future where these types of marketplaces increase in size, and they basically digitize our access to various services and products around the world.
Vukan, thank you so much for a guest here in chair, and for you out there, if you haven't subscribed already, do it now, and see you next Thursday when we talk about some new innovations.
Thank you.